Different date, same fate. I'm gonna knock out Jake Paul.
Yeah? Where's the first guy?
Yeah.
All right,
You got ice on your chest?
You know where you are? You know what state you're in?
Yeah, California.
Okay. What city are you in?
Calabasas.
No way I would want to do that.
Oh, yo, paramedic.
Yeah.
Before we go, I just want to tell.
Mike Tyson just snapped, and Jake Paul's ribs paid the price. That's right. Moments after Jake publicly announced he was pulling out of their highly anticipated fight, Tyson made a surprise appearance at Paul's training camp. And things got ugly fast. Now you might be thinking, wait, didn't Tyson postpone the fight himself? So how did he end up nearly folding Jake in half? Well, here's the thing. Iron Mike doesn't need a sanctioned ring or a ref to settle a score. The minute Jake pivoted and announced a new opponent, bare-knuckle brawler Mike Perry, Tyson took matters into his own fists. What unfolded next was nothing short of legendary, a jaw-dropping clash that no mainstream outlet has touched yet. So let me break it to you first. Jake Paul, who had been practically foaming at the mouth for a shot at Tyson, suddenly pulled the plug on their bout. No one saw it coming. And just like that, boom, Mike Tyson showed up, and Jake's ribcage became collateral damage in a real-life heavyweight storm. Yes, the rumors are true, the fight's off. But the war? It just went off script.
Yeah, the news is true, folks. I, Jake Paul, will be fighting Mike Perry, Tampa, Florida, July 20th.
All right, let's break this down without the fluff. After Jake Paul announced he was fighting Mike Tyson, the internet torched him. Every boxing analyst, critic, and their dog had something to say, and none of it was in Jake's favor. Then, Tyson dropped his training footage, and that was the final nail in the coffin. See, Jake thought he was gearing up for a fun little exhibition match. Meanwhile, Tyson's trainer, Rafael Cordero, accidentally let it slip. Mike was training like this was a title bout, not a friendly spar. That's when reality hit Jake like a left hook. He tried turning up the heat in the gym, but let's be real, he was already shaking in his boots.
Different date, same fate. I'm gonna knock out Jake Paul.
Let's be real. If you had a chance to dodge a fight that could literally end you, wouldn't you take it? Jake Paul did exactly that. When Mike Tyson had to postpone their fight, Jake saw it as a golden ticket. Instead of waiting for the storm to pass, he figured he'd cash in on the hype, dirty or clean, and pivot to fighting someone else. But Mike Tyson wasn't about to let him off the hook that easy. Tyson decided if Jake wasn't going to step into the ring, he'd bring the key ring to Jake and teach him the lesson he'd been saving for fight night right then and there. But let's rewind for a second. What was going on with Tyson around that time? On June 5th, 2024, reports dropped that Tyson had suffered a serious ulcer flare-up, and we're not talking a minor stomach ache. This happened mid-flight from LA to New York. Tyson suddenly doubled over in pain, and it got so bad that flight attendants had to intervene. As soon as the plane landed, Tyson was rushed to the hospital, where doctors diagnosed him with an acute ulcer flare-up. The boxing legend was seen being wheeled through the airport looking like he'd just been through hell. Even then, looking like a warrior fresh off a battlefield, Mike Tyson wasn't done.
No way. I did everything I was entitled to do in my career. There's nothing I regret.
Fans were stunned. This was Iron Mike, the man who once seemed untouchable. Suddenly, the news was everywhere. Tyson had suffered a serious medical scare, and everyone was asking the same question. Could he still make it to the rescheduled fight? This wasn't some minor issue. Tyson was diagnosed with a severe ulcer flare-up, and ulcers aren't to be taken lightly. We're talking risks like internal bleeding or even a perforated stomach lining. His medical team went on high alert, making sure he had the absolute best care possible. Tyson had to overhaul his training completely. No more brutal sparring sessions or pounding the heavy bag. His new routine focused on light cardio, technical work, and, most importantly, rest and recovery. Even while dealing with a health scare, Tyson stayed locked in. His team built a comprehensive plan to help him heal while staying in shape. That meant strict dietary changes, targeted medication, and a carefully managed schedule. He had to cut out anything that could aggravate his condition, stick to healing foods, and commit to a medical regimen. But through it all, Tyson never lost sight of his goal. Even training in a limited capacity, he showed the kind of relentless drive that made him a legend. Fans and the boxing world were both worried and deeply impressed. Tyson's resilience in the face of such a tough setback was a powerful reminder of his warrior spirit. His condition also sparked a larger conversation: the immense pressure elite athletes face. Behind the highlight reels and knockout punches is a brutal grind that can take a serious toll on both body and mind. Tyson's battle with his health was more than a medical story. It was a wake-up call about the cost of greatness. And still, he pushed forward, proving once again why he's one of the most feared and respected fighters in history.
One more. Day 3. You still want to with me?
In the weeks following the incident, Tyson's recovery went smoothly. His medical team kept him on a strict treatment plan, and he followed it with discipline. While his training wasn't as intense as before, his focus never wavered. The media watched closely, speculating whether Tyson could return to his usual form. Would he still have that signature explosiveness? That was the million-dollar question, and it only added to the intrigue surrounding the fight. But Tyson remained calm and confident. "I've faced tougher battles in my life," he told fans. "This is just another one I'll overcome." That line hit hard. Fans saw it as more than just words. It was a glimpse into the heart of a fighter who refuses to fold, no matter the odds. Tyson's decision to reschedule the fight wasn't just about picking a new date. It was a message. A declaration. Boxing isn't some casual game you can quit when it gets uncomfortable. Once you step into the ring, you honor that commitment. And Tyson made one thing very clear. Jake Paul begged for this fight for 2 years. Now that he had it, he couldn't just walk away. Jake wanted this fight. He chased it for 2 years. Now he thinks he can just walk? "No way," Tyson said, probably while delivering a death stare that could freeze lava. Tyson's mission wasn't just about schooling Jake. It was about showing the world what it really means to respect the sport. November 15th was now locked in as D-Day. The stage was set, the hype was real, and Tyson was more determined than ever. Jake Paul's decision to pull out of the fight was a mess, a whirlwind of overconfidence, public backlash, and a dose of cold, hard reality. At first, he was all in, obsessed with the idea of standing victorious over one of boxing's greatest legends. He was practically foaming at the mouth thinking about the headlines and the clout that would come with it. But then, reality hit him, harder than any punch Tyson had thrown yet. The moment the criticism started pouring in, Jake started to fold. The backlash was brutal. The pressure got to him. He wasn't just backing out of a fight, he was running from everything that came with it. And Tyson? He saw right through it. While Jake scrambled, Tyson stood tall, ready to remind the world that when it comes to boxing, respect is earned the hard way.
I know it's going to be tough. I know I'm going to have to fight through adversity. I know I might even go to the canvas. I'm scared, don't get me wrong, but it's not about the fear stopping me. It's about going into it even though I am scared, and that's what true bravery is.
Sure, Jake Paul loves playing the big, bad, confident guy, but deep down, he knew exactly what he was up against. With Tyson's severe ulcer flare-up making headlines and the former champ hospitalized, the optics were terrible. Imagine Jake knocking out a visibly sick Mike Tyson. No way that earns him respect. More likely, he'd be crucified for exploiting a struggling legend just to snag a cheap win. Not exactly the heroic image he was going for. Originally, Jake was riding high, fueled by ambition and, let's be honest, a heavy dose of naivety. He had this vision, standing tall over Tyson, victorious, basking in the glory of taking down a living legend. It was too tempting to resist. But then reality started leaking in. Reports of Tyson's emergency hospital visits, intense pain, and medical complications started flooding the news cycle. Suddenly, Jake's dream victory started looking more like a bad joke. This wouldn't be a triumph. It would be a farce. Then came the question of sportsmanship. For all his bravado, Jake does want to be taken seriously in the boxing world. He knew that fighting an unwell Tyson wouldn't earn him respect. It would just damage his already fragile credibility. A fair, legitimate fight was worth more than a hollow win over a sick opponent. So, after likely countless sleepless nights and long talks with his team, Jake made the call. On June 10, 2024, he announced he was pulling out of the fight, citing concerns about Tyson's health and a commitment to fair competition. But Jake Paul wasn't about to fade quietly into the background. He needed a new opponent, and fast, to keep the spotlight burning bright. Enter Mike Perry, a seasoned, no-nonsense brawler with a violent style and a chip on his shoulder. Perry screamed danger, and Jake saw the opportunity to prove he wasn't just talk. On June 12, 2024, negotiations kicked off. Both camps were hungry to make it happen. Jake's manager, Nakisa Badarian, knew they needed a credible opponent ASAP to keep fans and media buzzing. Perry, seeing his shot to step into the limelight and square off with one of the most talked-about names in boxing, was all in. But this wasn't just about boxing, it was about putting on a spectacle. With both fighters boasting massive fan bases, they needed a venue that could match the moment. On June 15th, they locked it in, the legendary MGM Grand Garden Arena in Las Vegas, the same ring that had hosted some of boxing's most iconic battles. Just like that, the hype machine roared back to life. But if Jake thought he was done with Tyson, he was dead wrong. Mike Tyson may have been sidelined, but he wasn't sitting idle. And on July 8, 2024, he proved it, dropping in for an unexpected visit that ended with a punch so devastating it turned Jake's world upside down. This wasn't just any hit. This was a Tyson punch, the kind that doesn't just knock you down, but makes you question your life choices. A blow with the force, speed, and precision that reminded everyone, you don't mess with the champ, even outside the ring.
Yeah?
Where's the first?
Yeah.
All right,
You got ice on your chest?
You know where you are? You know what state you're in?
Yeah, California.
Okay. What city are you in?
No way I would want to do that. Yo, paramedic.
Yeah.
Before we go,
Right after that punch landed, it was clear Jake Paul was in serious trouble. We're talking immediate swelling, intense pain, and the kind of stumbling that made it look like he'd just stepped off the world's roughest roller coaster. The hit? Brutal. It cracked one of Jake's ribs, and the sheer force of it gave him a mild concussion. During his hospital stay, Jake had a steady stream of visitors, but none more constant than his brother Logan. He stayed by Jake's side almost nonstop, offering emotional support and helping him process the chaos. Usually, these two are all about showmanship and swagger, but in those hospital walls, things got real. Quiet moments, tough conversations, and a whole lot of reflection on how quickly things had escalated. As expected, once the news broke, the media went into a full-on frenzy. Paparazzi swarmed the hospital, forcing staff to ramp up security. Only close family and medical personnel were allowed near Jake. Still, despite efforts to keep things under wraps, updates kept leaking, fueling the public's insatiable curiosity. On July 15, 2024, exactly 1 week after the incident, Jake was released from the hospital. He left with a detailed recovery plan, pain management, physical therapy, and frequent medical checkups to monitor the healing process. His rib would take time to mend, and concussion symptoms had to be closely watched. Even his jaw needed weeks of rest. Now here's the million-dollar question. Did Mike Tyson go too far? Was Jake asking for it, or did Tyson cross the line? What do you think? Did the punch serve as a hard lesson or an unnecessary escalation? Drop your thoughts in the A. Comments, let's talk. Don't forget to like the channel, subscribe, and press the bell icon to stay updated with all the latest content.